HMS Barham, the friendly fire magnet. Here's a statistic that shouldn't exist. In 28 years of service, HMS Barham killed 986 Allied sailors. Her confirmed enemy kills? Maybe 50. This breaks every rule of naval warfare. You build battleships to sink enemy ships. You don't build them to accidentally murder your own fleet. But HMS Barham had a special talent. She turned friendly vessels into underwater scrap metal. It's like hiring a bodyguard who keeps shooting you while letting muggers escape. The math is impossible. A British warship more dangerous to Britain than to Germany. A protector that needed protection from herself. The kind of nightmare that makes naval historians drink heavily. But every disaster has an origin story. And Barham's begins in Scotland. Chapter 1. The Paradox Ship. February 24, 1913. John Brown Shipyard at Clydebank. Scottish steelworkers are about to birth a monster. They don't know it yet. Yard number 424. Contract price, £2,470,000. That's serious money for serious firepower. 643 feet of cutting-edge warship technology. The workers think they're building Britain's answer to German naval power. They're actually creating a friendly fire magnet. 8 15-inch guns that can punch holes through mountains. Brown Curtis turbines instead of standard engines. The latest in naval technology. The shipyard reorganized their entire facility just for this monster. 150-ton cranes. Specialized equipment. John Brown was betting their reputation on this ship. Europe was sliding toward war. The naval arms race was reaching fever pitch. Germans had dreadnoughts. Americans had super dreadnoughts. Britain needed something faster and deadlier. Enter the Queen Elizabeth class. Fast battleships. Take a battleship's armor and guns. Give it battlecruiser speed. The best of both worlds. No compromises. They named her Barham, after Admiral Charles Middleton, 1st Baron Barham. Here's the irony that would make Shakespeare weep. Baron Barham never lost a friendly ship to his own guns. He kept the Royal Navy organized during the Napoleonic Wars. His namesake would shatter that record. Completely. New Year's Eve, 1914. HMS Barham slides into the River Clyde. Champagne bottles breaking. Crowds cheering. Nobody mentioned that Europe was already tearing itself apart in the trenches. Captain Arthur Craig Waller takes command. War has a funny way of creating unexpected enemies. Sometimes the most dangerous foe wears your own uniform. October 1st, 1915. HMS Barham joins the Grand Fleet as flagship. Rear Admiral Hugh Evan Thomas hoists his flag aboard. The ship is ready for combat. The question is whether combat is ready for HMS Barham. Chapter 2. Trial by Fire. May 31st, 1916. The North Sea is about to witness history's biggest naval slugfest. HMS Barham steams north hunting German battlecruisers. Rear Admiral Evan Thomas stands on Barham's bridge. He's got 4 Queen Elizabeth-class battleships, fast enough to catch German raiders, tough enough to fight anything the Kaiser can throw at them. That's the theory. Reality is always messier. Admiral Beatty's battlecruisers have found the German scouting force. The trap is set. Beatty will lure the Germans toward Jellicoe's Grand Fleet. The 5th Battle Squadron will hammer them from the flank. Beautiful plan on paper. Unfortunately, the Germans didn't read the British tactical manual. Something goes wrong with communications. Evan Thomas doesn't get the signal to follow Beatty. By the time he figures it out, Beatty's racing toward German guns with inadequate support. The 5th Battle Squadron has to catch up fast. This means steaming straight into enemy fire. HMS Barham proves she's got steel in her spine. The German battlecruiser squadron opens fire first. Shells the size of cars scream across the water. Most splash harmlessly, but some find their mark. Barham's 15-inch guns roar back. The sound is like God slamming a door. Each shell weighs 871 kilograms. They can punch through contemporary armor at extreme range. 337 rounds from Barham's main battery. Her gunnery is accurate enough to make the enemy uncomfortable. Multiple hits scored on German battlecruisers. The kind of shooting that wins battles. But the Germans shoot back with everything they've got. German gunnery is nothing to laugh about. 6 direct hits on HMS Barham. 6 shells that could have ended her career. The armor holds, mostly. But armor can only do so much against high-velocity steel. Below deck, the real nightmare begins. Imagine being trapped in a flooded compartment. No light. No communication. Water rising around your ankles. Then your knees. Then your waist. The ship's guns thunder overhead. Rivets shake loose. Steel plates groan like a living thing in pain. That's what happened to some of Barham's crew during Jutland. Flooding in the lower compartments. Emergency lighting knocked out. Communication systems dead. Just darkness and rising water. Hours pass like days. The battle rages overhead. Gun crews keep firing. Damage control teams work frantically. But down in the flooded spaces, time moves differently. One gunner never recovered psychologically. The records don't mention his name, but they note he was never the same afterward. Shell shock, they called it then. PTSD, we call it now. Jutland officially ended as a German tactical victory and British strategic victory. The German High Seas Fleet limped home and never came out in force again. The Royal Navy maintained control of the North Sea. But HMS Barham limped home with a pattern established. She could dish out punishment and take it in return. Her gunnery was among the most accurate at Jutland. Her damage control was first-rate. The problem was that attracted attention. Enemy attention. The kind that turns you into a target magnet. Ships that fight well tend to keep fighting. Ships that keep fighting encounter situations where the difference between friend and foe gets blurred. 23 years later, that deadly magnetism would turn inward. The ship that survived history's greatest naval battle was about to become history's greatest friendly fire disaster. Chapter 3. The Collision Course. December 12, 1939. Scottish fog thick enough to cut with a knife. Visibility drops to practically zero. You can barely see your own bow. HMS Barham is steaming home from Mediterranean duty. HMS Duchess provides escort, a routine transit, the kind of boring operation that doesn't make headlines. Until it does. Picture the scene from Barham's Bridge. You're commanding 33,000 tons of battleship. You're moving through fog like pea soup. Your escort is out there somewhere, but where exactly? Radio chatter is minimal. Navigation is guesswork. Everyone's flying blind. The Mull of Kintyre is 9 miles away. Scottish waters. Friendly territory. No enemy submarines reported. This should be the easy part. Home waters. Safe passage. Nothing to worry about except weather. That's when Murphy's Law kicks in. Steel meets steel in the fog. HMS Barham's massive bow crushes HMS Duchess like she's made of tinfoil. The destroyer doesn't stand a chance. 33,000 tons versus 1,500 tons. It's not a collision. It's an execution. HMS Duchess capsizes instantly. No time for damage control. No time for emergency procedures. One moment she's a functioning warship. The next she's an underwater grave. 124 British sailors die in seconds. The freezing Scottish water claims them before rescue operations can begin. 23 survivors. 23 men who somehow got clear of the sinking destroyer. They stay alive in water cold enough to kill you in minutes. They owe their lives to luck, training, and desperate determination. From Barham's perspective, it's a nightmare in slow motion. You watch your own escort disappear beneath the waves. Your ship. Your responsibility. Your disaster. World War II's first Royal Navy loss. Not from German guns or Italian torpedoes. From British steel ramming British steel in Scottish fog. The Royal Navy's most powerful battleship has just claimed her first Allied vessel. The investigation reveals the obvious. Navigation difficulties in fog. Communication failures between vessels. The kind of mistakes that happen when you operate warships in restricted visibility. But HMS Barham's friendly fire curse has officially begun. 16 days later, German submarine U-30 finds Barham off the butt of Lewis. Commander Fritz Julius Lemp has been stalking British warships since the war began. His submarine sank the neutral liner Athenia on the war's first day. Even enemy attacks seem touched by friendly fire confusion. The torpedo hits adjacent to A and B turrets. The explosion destroys Barham's anti-torpedo bulge. 4 men die instantly. 2 more are wounded. The ship takes significant flooding and develops a 7-degree list. But HMS Barham proves she's tougher than her reputation suggests. Her damage control teams perform miracles. They transfer fuel to compensate for the list. They patch holes and shore up bulkheads. They keep the ship afloat when she should be heading for the bottom. The Queen Elizabeth-class underwater protection works as designed. The torpedo explosion is contained. Vital spaces remain intact. Barham maintains mobility at reduced speed. She limps into Birkenhead for repairs. 4 months of cutting out damaged steel and welding in new plates. 4 months of upgrading systems and improving protection. 4 months of preparing for the next round of combat. Nobody mentions that her deadliest friendly fire incident still lies ahead. Nobody talks about ramming HMS Duchess as part of a pattern. Ships collide in fog. Submarines torpedo battleships. These things happen in wartime. But patterns reveal themselves over time. HMS Barham's pattern is becoming clear. She's more dangerous to her friends than her enemies. Chapter 4. The Vichy Paradox. September 23, 1940. HMS Barham steams toward Dakar. She carries 15-inch guns and diplomatic hopes in equal measure. Operation Menace is supposed to convince Vichy French forces to join the Free French cause. Diplomacy backed by battleship firepower. What could go wrong? Everything, as it turns out. The moral complexity would give philosophy professors nightmares. 6 months ago, the French were Britain's allies. Now they're technically neutral but practically hostile. It depends on which French government you recognize. Charles de Gaulle's Free French want to liberate Dakar from Vichy control. The British want to prevent German U-boats from using West African ports. The Vichy French just want everyone to leave them alone. Simple, right? About as simple as quantum physics written in ancient Greek. Admiral John Cunningham commands the British task force. He's got HMS Barham, the carrier Ark Royal, heavy cruisers, destroyers, and Free French forces under de Gaulle. The plan is straightforward. Sail into Dakar harbor. Make polite diplomatic overtures. Hope the Vichy French see reason. The Vichy French have other ideas. Dakar's defenses center around the battleship Richelieu. She's got coastal batteries that could turn attacking fleets into underwater scrap metal. Richelieu is brand new. 8 15-inch guns in 2 quadruple turrets. She's technically more advanced than Barham. Better armor. More modern fire control. On paper, this should be an even match. In reality, naval combat is never that neat. Negotiations begin with diplomatic theater that would make Shakespeare proud. Free French representatives approach under a flag of truce. Loudspeakers broadcast appeals to French patriotism. Everyone hopes common sense will prevail. It doesn't. First shots come from Richelieu's secondary armament. 6-inch shells splash around British destroyers like expensive fireworks. The diplomatic phase is over. Time for the gunfire phase. HMS Barham's 15-inch guns thunder across Dakar harbor. The sound echoes off the African coast. Her target is Richelieu, sitting at anchor like a steel fortress that forgot to be mobile. 2 direct hits on the French battleship. 15-inch shells at ballistic velocity make impressive holes in enemy armor. Richelieu's forward turret is knocked out. Her superstructure is mangled. She's hurt but not out of the fight. The French shoot back with everything they've got. 4 shells strike HMS Barham, 2 from Richelieu's remaining guns, 2 from coastal batteries. The irony is thick enough to cut. The shore batteries are manned by crew from Richelieu's disabled turret. Think about that. The same French gunners shooting at Barham from the battleship are now shooting at her from shore positions. It's like playing chess against an opponent with pieces on 2 different boards. HMS Barham absorbs the punishment and keeps firing. Her damage control teams patch holes and fight fires. Her gun crews maintain steady fire. She's proving Queen Elizabeth-class battleships can take a beating and dish one out. But this isn't a fight to the finish. Operation Menace has political objectives, not military ones. The goal isn't to sink Richelieu or level Dakar. The goal is convincing Vichy French to change sides. Hard to do when you're destroying their naval assets. The engagement ends with both sides claiming victory. Richelieu is damaged but afloat. HMS Barham is hit but fighting. The coastal batteries are intact and manned by determined French gunners who don't appreciate British diplomatic methods. Operation Menace fails to achieve its political objectives. The Vichy French remain loyal to Pétain's government. Dakar stays under Vichy control. German U-boats continue using West African ports. The Free French don't get their propaganda victory. But HMS Barham proves something important. She can engage modern enemy battleships and hold her own. Her gunnery is accurate enough to score decisive hits. Her armor is tough enough to absorb contemporary weapons. She's still a formidable fighting ship. Fighting former allies proves more psychologically demanding than facing traditional enemies. When you're shooting at Germans or Italians, the moral calculus is simple. They're trying to kill you, so you try to kill them first. When you're shooting at Frenchmen who were your allies 6 months ago, the moral calculus gets complicated fast. The crew returns from Dakar with mixed feelings. They proved their ship could fight, they demonstrated British resolve, but they also contributed to the French Civil War that's tearing apart a former ally. Success against former allies would soon give way to triumph alongside current friends. But the psychological scars from Dakar would linger. Another layer to HMS Barham's growing reputation as a ship that attracts moral complexity along with enemy fire. Chapter 5. Night of Perfect Gunnery. March 28, 1941. The Mediterranean is about to witness naval gunnery that makes textbook writers weep with joy. HMS Barham steams through darkness with Admiral Cunningham's battle fleet. They're hunting Italian cruisers like steel wolves. The Italians have walked into the perfect trap. Admiral Iachino thought he was chasing British convoy routes. Instead, he's led his cruiser squadron straight into 3 British battleships. It's like bringing a knife to a gunfight, except the knives are 8-inch naval rifles and the guns are 15-inch monsters. Radar technology gives the British an overwhelming advantage. The Italians navigate by dead reckoning and wishful thinking. The British know exactly where everyone is. Electronic eyes that see through Mediterranean darkness. It's not a fair fight. It's an execution. But executions require executioners. HMS Barham is about to prove she's the best in the business. Admiral Cunningham commands from HMS Warspite, Barham and Valiant steam in line astern. 3 Queen Elizabeth-class battleships in perfect formation. 22 knots toward unsuspecting Italian cruisers. The geometry of naval warfare has rarely been this elegant. Aboard HMS Valiant, 20-year-old Prince Philip operates the searchlights. His Royal Highness is still Lieutenant Philip Mountbatten. He's working the night shift on a battleship's bridge. History doesn't record his thoughts as he prepares to illuminate targets for British guns. Probably something like this is going to be loud. Italian cruisers Fiume and Zara steam in line ahead. They're completely unaware that 3 British battleships are closing from astern. They maintain radio silence. Tactically sound but strategically useless when your enemies have radar and you don't. Range closes to 3,800 yards. That's not naval gunnery range. That's practically pistol range for 15-inch guns. You could throw rocks farther, if you had really good arms and rocks the size of small cars. Prince Philip's searchlights snap on like artificial suns. The Italian cruisers are suddenly illuminated in harsh white light, as helpless as deer caught in headlights, except these deer are made of steel and armed with 8-inch guns. The headlights are attached to battleships that want them dead. HMS Barham's guns speak with perfect authority. 8 15-inch rifles firing as one. Each shell weighs 871 kilograms. They travel fast enough to punch through contemporary armor like cardboard. The muzzle flash illuminates the entire Mediterranean. The Italian cruiser Fiume disintegrates. Not sinks. Not explodes. Disintegrates. One moment she's a functioning warship. The next she's scattered across several square miles of Mediterranean real estate. 15-inch shells at point-blank range don't leave room for survival. Zara follows her sister to the bottom within minutes. The British battleships fire coordinated salvos with mechanical precision. Each ship knows her target. Each gun crew knows their job. The execution is flawless. 2 Italian destroyers try to interfere. They join their cruisers on the Mediterranean floor. The British gunners are in that zone where everything goes right. Rangefinders work perfectly. Gun laying is precise. Shell splashes are right on target. It's like watching a masterclass in naval gunnery, except the tuition is paid in Italian lives. Complete annihilation in less than 5 minutes. The Italian cruiser squadron simply ceases to exist. No survivors from Fiume. A handful from Zara. The destroyers are underwater scrap metal. The kind of one-sided victory that makes naval historians reach for superlatives. HMS Barham's contribution is devastating and precise. Her gun crews fire with mechanical accuracy. Shells go exactly where they need to maximize damage. No wasted shots. No misses. Every shell contributes to destroying Italian naval power. This is what HMS Barham was built to do. Fast enough to catch enemy cruisers. Tough enough to absorb return fire. Armed with guns powerful enough to sink anything that floats. The Queen Elizabeth-class design philosophy vindicated in 5 minutes of perfect violence. Cape Matapan represents everything HMS Barham was supposed to achieve. Devastating firepower applied with surgical precision. Complete tactical coordination with friendly forces. Overwhelming victory against enemy naval units. No friendly casualties. No confusion about targets. No moral complexity about who you're shooting at. Pure naval warfare at its most effective. The textbook example of how battleships should be employed. Fast, accurate, overwhelming, decisive. Prince Philip's searchlights illuminated the targets, but the real stars were gun crews who put steel on target with clockwork precision. The future Duke of Edinburgh helped light the way for HMS Barham's perfect gunnery. Cape Matapan effectively ended Italian naval power in the Mediterranean. The cruiser squadron was gone. The battle fleet retreated to port and rarely sortied afterward. British convoys could transit Mediterranean waters with reduced interference. Mission accomplished. Enemy destroyed. Strategic objectives achieved. No friendly fire incidents. No ramming disasters. No moral complexity about shooting former allies. This perfect victory would be HMS Barham's last moment of unqualified triumph. Her reputation as a friendly fire magnet was about to reassert itself, in the most catastrophic way possible. Chapter 6, 4 Minutes to Eternity. November 25, 1941. HMS Barham steams west of Crete with the Mediterranean fleet. She's completely unaware that she has 4 minutes left to live. Her crew goes about normal shipboard routine. Gun maintenance. Watch changes. The boring naval procedures that keep warships operational. 60 feet below the surface, Oberleutnant Hans Dietrich von Tiesenhausen peers through U-331's periscope. He's 25 years old. He's about to achieve every submarine commander's dream. 3 British battleships in perfect torpedo range, steaming in predictable formation, completely oblivious to his presence. The geometry of naval warfare is about to become brutally simple. Submarine plus torpedoes plus unsuspecting battleship equals underwater grave. It's happened before. It'll happen again, rarely with such devastating friendly fire consequences. Von Tiesenhausen lines up his attack with clockmaker precision. Range, bearing, speed, course. The calculations have to be perfect. You only get one chance against a battleship. Miss, and they hunt you with destroyers and depth charges. Hit, and you make naval history. U-331 fires 4 torpedoes at the British formation. 3 streak toward HMS Barham's port side like steel sharks with explosive teeth. 1 torpedo malfunctions and runs deep, missing everything. The other 3 run true and hot. At 4:25 p.m., 3 G7E electric torpedoes slam into Barham's port side. The impacts are spaced along her hull like surgical strikes. Each warhead contains 280 kilograms of hexanide explosive, enough to blow holes through contemporary underwater protection. The immediate damage is catastrophic but survivable. HMS Barham lists 8 degrees to port as seawater floods her port engine room. Her electrical systems fail. Her propulsion is compromised. She's hurt badly but still afloat. Damage control teams race through the ship. They fight rising water with portable pumps and emergency lighting. They've trained for this scenario countless times. Torpedo damage, flooding control, counterflooding to correct the list. The procedures are second nature. But they only have 4 minutes to make it work. The flooding spreads faster than pumps can handle. Seawater reaches the cordite storage areas adjacent to torpedo impacts. British cordite is notoriously unstable when wet. It doesn't just burn. It detonates with the force of a small nuclear weapon. At 4:29 p.m., HMS Barham's after magazines explode. The blast splits her hull like a giant's axe chopping through a tree trunk. The explosion starts in cordite storage and propagates through ammunition spaces. 15-inch shells cook off in sympathetic detonation. Secondary magazines contribute to destruction. The ship literally tears herself apart from the inside out. 862 British sailors die instantly. Not wounded. Not missing. Dead. The explosion is so violent that most of the crew never knows what hit them. One moment they're fighting flooding damage. The next they're vaporized by their own ammunition. The blast is visible for miles. A column of fire and steel debris reaches toward the Mediterranean sky like an accusation against naval engineering. The explosion throws pieces of Barham's superstructure hundreds of yards. Her main guns are hurled through the air like artillery shells fired by an angry god. 4 minutes from torpedo impact to complete destruction. 4 minutes to transform 33,000 tons of warship into underwater debris. 4 minutes for HMS Barham to complete her transformation from protector to accidental executioner. The survivors in the water count less than 400. Men blown clear by the explosion, or lucky enough to be topside when the magazines went up. They're floating in oil-slicked Mediterranean waters, watching their ship's final moments with stunned disbelief. Batey news cameras aboard HMS Valiant capture the entire sequence. The torpedo impacts, the listing ship, the catastrophic explosion, dramatic footage that would normally be rushed to British cinemas to boost morale. Instead, the Admiralty classifies the footage for 2 months. Families receive mysterious letters warning them to maintain absolute silence. British intelligence runs an elaborate deception operation to hide the loss from German reconnaissance. The cover-up works too well. German commanders don't immediately realize they've sunk a British battleship. Von Tiesenhausen reports attacking a Queen Elizabeth-class vessel but can't confirm the kill. U-331 dives deep and escapes while British destroyers search for survivors instead of hunting submarines. Even in death, HMS Barham generates more controversy than clarity. The Admiralty's deception creates more confusion than the original sinking. Families don't know if their sons are dead or missing. Naval intelligence doesn't know if the Germans know what they accomplished. The final irony writes itself in blood and mathematics. HMS Barham's ultimate casualty figures defy naval logic. 124 Allied deaths from ramming HMS Duchess. 862 British deaths from her own magazine explosion. Total friendly casualties: 986 dead British and Commonwealth sailors. Total confirmed enemy casualties from Barham's guns: less than 50 German and Italian sailors across 28 years. The ship built to destroy German naval power killed 20 times more British sailors than enemy combatants. The protector became the executioner. The hunter became the victim of her own deadly magnetism. In 4 minutes of catastrophic explosion, HMS Barham completed her transformation. From Britain's premier battleship to history's most tragic friendly fire example. Her legacy isn't measured in enemy ships sunk or battles won. It's measured in the mathematical impossibility of a warship more dangerous to her own side than her enemies. The numbers don't lie, even when they tell an impossible story. So there you have it. HMS Barham's 28-year career in all its mathematically impossible glory. 986 Allied sailors dead. Less than 50 confirmed enemy kills. The kind of friendly fire ratio that makes you wonder if someone mixed up the blueprints. This isn't how naval warfare is supposed to work. You design battleships to sink enemy vessels, not to accidentally execute your own fleet. But HMS Barham had a special talent for turning friendly forces into underwater statistics. She was like a bodyguard who kept shooting the client while letting muggers escape. The numbers tell a story that shouldn't exist. A British warship more dangerous to Britain than to Germany. A protector that needed protection from herself. The kind of cosmic irony that makes naval historians question their faith in maritime engineering. But here's the thing that makes HMS Barham's legacy even more tragic. She was actually good at her job when she wasn't accidentally killing her own side. Her gunnery at Jutland was among the most accurate in the battle. Her performance at Cape Matapan was textbook perfect. Her damage control after the U-30 torpedo attack was exemplary. When HMS Barham fought enemy forces, she won. When she encountered friendly forces in fog, Scottish waters, or confined spaces, people died. It's like she had a radar system calibrated to detect Allied vessels, and a fire control system programmed to engage anything wearing a British uniform. The really twisted part? Her final explosion probably saved lives. Not British lives, obviously. But if Barham had survived World War II, her friendly fire curse might have continued into the atomic age. Imagine what kind of accidental damage a nuclear-armed battleship with her track record could have accomplished. The universe has a sense of humor. Sometimes it's the kind that makes you uncomfortable at parties. HMS Barham represents every military planner's nightmare. The weapon that turns against its own users. The protection that becomes the threat. The solution that creates bigger problems than the original crisis. She reminds us that war is fundamentally chaotic. Chaos doesn't respect blueprints, training, or good intentions. Sometimes the most dangerous enemy is the one you never see coming. Sometimes that enemy is wearing your own uniform and sailing under your own flag. Rest in peace, HMS Barham. You were Britain's most effective accidental weapon against Britain. The mathematics of your career remain as impossible today as they were in 1941. 986 to 50. The friendly fire ratio that defies logic and challenges our understanding of how warships are supposed to work. Some numbers just refuse to make sense.